All right, you figured out that you want to retire. You're tired of your job. You want something new. You want to travel the world, whatever that is. But how much do you need to fund your ideal life? All right, Jason, let's talk about numbers. How much do you need? How much have you spent on average to live your ideal life in the last 5, 10 years?
You know what's funny is the classic joke is that always the answer is going to be it depends. And it's true that it depends, but we hate that phrase. So we're going to go into like actual real numbers. I think for us specifically after so I retired or I semi-retired at 38 years old. That's been 8 years ago now. I think on average, I mean my wife still has a full-time job and works, but we probably spend 50, $60,000 a year. That's what our lifestyle, our ideal life looks like. That includes all of the commitments and all that stuff. We have some creative things that we're doing with housing and reduced costs. We have no debt. Big deal there. So that reduces the amount that has to go out. If we had a bunch of debt or if we had a big expensive house or if we had fancy cars or any of that stuff, that 50, 60,000 would go up significantly. And that's where people feel like, oh gosh, I can't retire. How much do I need to retire? Because I need to make this $100,000 income. It's not necessarily the case. You have to make the choice for yourself. So that's where our range is right now.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'll share our numbers is very similar. About 8 years we've been retired, semi-retired, if you will. My wife and I have been traveling, and we travel the world in different ways, and we have had multiple $20,000 years. Now that is the minimum, right? Our $20,000 years. We've done that again 3 or 4 times, if I remember. But then other years, for example, last year, we spent $40,000. And so it's changed, it's adjusted. We're in another country and we're experiencing life a little bit grander or differently. So we're on track. And $40,000 right now is a great number for us to continue to live our life. Now, we already know how to live on less. And I am certain we can find ways to live on more. But for us right now, $3,000, $4,000 a month, right? To get to that number, about $40,000 a year is perfect for us too. Now, both as a reminder, both Jason and his wife and me and my wife, we don't have kids in this equation,
Hmm.
but it's not impossible to put kids in our situation or put kids in Jason's situation. Now, that may increase the numbers slightly, but for us, that's where we're at right now. You just
Yeah.
have to be clear on what your number is.
Yeah. That's a real interesting. And um, also to note is we don't have poverty level lives. So when we
No,
talk about Mike spending $20,000, you think, oh gosh, like they live on nothing, right? You know, chicken and rice every day, and they're not going anywhere, not doing anything fun. Or with us, we're not. No, no, no. We have good lives. We travel a bunch. We go to sporting events. We go to all kinds of things. I just went to Seattle and spent 3 to 4 days. I went to 3 different ball games. I spent several $100s on that trip easy over a weekend. Like this is the kind of stuff that we totally do without debt. We still are able to have fun lives. So don't think that just because you have $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 of lifestyle, that it's this poverty level lifestyle. It's not. We have great lives.
correct. Yeah, that first year we were in our 4-wheel drive and rooftop tent driving around Australia, and we spent $20,000 for the year. We only worked 7 weeks out of the 12 months. It was amazing. Great life. Another year, specifically, this one's easy to remember. In 2021, we spent $21,000 for the year. And we got to live on Fraser Island, which is the largest sand island in the world. Got paid to live on it. And we were on the island for over 7 months. And because of that, it funded the whole year. Right? We didn't even have to pull from investments. We didn't really need additional income to that. But that was an amazing opportunity we got to try because we were open to doing it.
Yeah.
And we were clear on what our life looked like.
Yeah, exactly. So let's dive into how do we help the viewer that's saying, how much do I need
Mm.
to retire. How do I figure that out? Let's walk through what their ideal life looks like, possibly, and then figure out how they can calculate the number that they would need.
Certainly. Well, what is it that you want to do? Who are you with? Who's traveling with you? Or where are you going? What food are you eating? What are you wearing? All the activities. Add all that up. And I do want to throw in a quick story of one time I heard a young 20-year-old. It wasn't me, but it could have been. And he said, I need $1 billion. Well, okay, let's talk about it. What do you need $1 billion for? Well, I want to own a castle in Europe. I want to own a private island. I want to have a private jet. Those are all great, but let's figure out why. Well, how long are you going to be in your castle? I figure I'll take my family over on my private jet 3 or 4 weeks a year. Okay. What about the island? Same thing. I think I'll take friends and family over there for 2 or 3 weeks a year. Well, come to find out, if you actually investigate, you can rent a castle. You can rent a private jet. You can rent a private island, and you can have it all catered for a lot less than $1 billion. Right? You can just rent all those things for the amount of time you're going to spend doing those things. Now, for us, we live in an RV. We've owned this for 2 years, so we chose to purchase it. If you're not quite sure, we encourage you to rent it, just like that example. If you don't have enough money, renting is cheaper in the short term than purchasing.
Yeah,
Does that make sense so far?
even though it looks like it's more, because I talk about that argument all the time when people are saying, "Oh, well, you know what? To rent a boat, a ski boat, I want to go ski, jet skiing or whatever. To rent that would cost me multiple hundreds of dollars for one day, but I can
Yes.
buy it for $45,000 and I can have it forever." I'm like, okay, well, how many days will you have to rent it in order to break even for that $45,000? And you have to store it, and you have to have
Mhm.
insurance for it, and you have to put gas in it, and you have to all of these things. There's
Yes.
maintenance. It's just like a vehicle. It's the same thing. It's got to be worth it to you. You've got to use it enough to make it worth buying. So just do that calculation in your head of how much would it take? How many days would you need to rent it? Or how many weeks would you need to rent that thing in order to make it worth it to buy? So just because the higher sticker price per day or per hour or whatever is high doesn't mean that it's not a good deal. So you got to do that calculation for sure.
Yes. And being creative, right? Being clear and creative. So let's decide you don't need $1 billion because you don't need $1 billion. Maybe you only need 1 million. So when it comes to numbers, if you have $1 million invested, and that could be in a rental income, that could be in mutual funds, it could be in a number of ways, but I like doing easy numbers. So it pays an annual average return of 10%. So if you had $1 million at 10%, it's going to give you $100,000. Now, if you don't agree with that, that's okay. Reduce that, right? Or increase the nest egg, right? Maybe you need 1.2 million to give you $100,000 a year. Or if you only think you're going to get a return of 8% on $1 million, that's only $80,000 a year. And Jason and I both have explained we have lived on $80,000 as two couples together.
Yeah. That's true. So then, as you're looking through and defining what your ideal life looks like, when Mike talks about what do you want your life to look like, you got to figure out what that costs, right? So if you want a fancy car, a fancy house, right, and you want to do all the vacations, all that, obviously you're going to have a higher income. If you have a non-fancy life, let's say, and you just are a homebody and you want to go on a couple of weekend trips a year and you want to stay local, like you're not doing all these fancy things, then yeah, your income is going to be a lot lower. Then you got to figure out, where do you get that income from? It could be your regular job that you have. Maybe you love working and you want to work full time. That's fine. But if you do want to semi-retire like we have, or if you want to retire completely, maybe you don't have that job, but you have to have an income from someplace else. It could be your Social Security if you're older. Could be a side hustle if you have a little side hustle job. I just ran into somebody yesterday who does power washing. You know, 20, 30, $40 an hour, just power washes on the weekends or something. That could be a side hustle. You can start a little business. It doesn't have to be full fledged. You can have recurring income. And we use that word on purpose, not passive income. Mike and I don't believe in passive income. It's very, very, very rare, but recurring income of something that you put in work up front and then you get paid for ongoing, or maybe you've got something else coming in. Maybe it's an inheritance, maybe something. So any income that you have coming in from all these different resources, can that income pay for your ideal life? That's the easiest calculation. That's what you need to figure out to answer the question, how much do I need to retire?
Yep. Being clear on what that number is and then how to get it. Like Jason's saying, if you want to trade your time for money and all these little things add up because your expenses are low, great. Or maybe you have the combination, right? Maybe you are working seasonally. Maybe you only work 7 weeks out of the year, like I've done before. Or maybe you work 6 months out of the year. And then the other 6 months you live on that savings. So you could do that, and or you could have the investments pay you that reoccurring income as well. So the combination, when you add those together, can pay for your ideal life.
Yeah. And you got to stick to your budget, because when you're on this income and your ideal life, if you end up spending $100,000 more than you planned, then your investments will go away, and then they don't produce the type of income that you need. So you got to stick to your budget as well. Be intentional and purposeful when you're talking about spending and saving and all the things. And then you're able to sustain this ideal life, this semi-retired or this retired life, going into your old age, for example. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else,
And
Mike, on this need to retire? How much do I need to retire?
no, just continue to watch this. We're going to have a series that we'll put in the link below, just here in the video, if you will. And be sure to like and subscribe and share this with others that want to retire early and want to be able to do that in their 30s.